Hi, grade nines. So we're on to word problems now, and the first one I know I signed for you was question 12. So it says the mean of two numbers is 3.2. One of the mean. Okay, well, hang on before I get too ahead of myself. Do you guys remember what mean means? Haha. What is the mean? Mathematically speaking. Now, we're not talking about the movie Mean Girls or anything like that. So this concept of mean, remember this? Mean, median, mode, range. Okay. The other word for it is average. Most students and most everyday citizens are used to talking about the word average. What is a goaltender's average? What's a baseball pitcher's average? What's the on base average? Students, what's my average in this class? So average is mean. So the average of two numbers, I just translated there, the average of two numbers is 3.2. Okay, one of the numbers is 8.1. What is the other number? Okay, what is the other number? Well, I'm not going to do your homework for you. This is one of the times where I'm going to do a similar problem. In fact, I'm going to do this twice, okay? So I'm going to do a similar problem. I'm going to actually do similar problem times 2. Okay, in other words, I'm going to do this problem twice. The first example, I'm just going to call it the warm-up. And let me relate to you what we're talking about here. Let's talk about an average on tests. Okay. And I'm going to try to make this so simple that perhaps you could solve this question mentally. So let's say, Mr. Smith, on test, we'll just call it test number 1, okay? One of the numbers is 8.1. One of the tests, I scored an 80%, okay? And by the way, we're assuming the tests are all worth the same. Okay, the test number 2, I don't know. So just like one of the numbers is 8.1, what is the other number? One of the tests, I got 80%. The other test, don't know. But the mean, okay, or in other words, the average between these two tests was a 75%. Okay? The average was 75%. Okay, well, how do we figure out an average? And by the way, if you've solved this mentally already, you might be trying to just apply common sense here and go, well, I think if one test was 80, but your average is 75, you probably scored lower on the second, this missing one, and it would have to be 70 because if you, on one hand, if test number 1, right, you got 80, and test number 2, well, we don't know, but the average is 75. Well, the way to average that out, to average out a two test scores, that would end up being 75. Well, this is 5 away from 80, and this is 5 away from 70. So the test number 2 must be a 70. But the thing is, we're at a point now, grade 9s, that of course, as you can see, not all these questions are going to be so simply set up. So in other words, you need to be able to make an equation and solve this algebraically because, I'm not sure that, a lot of students, even in high school, would be able to solve this through mental math. So what do you do? Well, an average or a mean is you total up all your scores, okay? So if you have test number 1, let's call this test number A. Let's call this test B. So let's say you had a whole bunch, let's just say you had 2 tests. You would add up your test scores and divide by 2, okay? If you ended up writing 3 tests, let's say you wrote test A, B, and C, your average would be the total of those scores. Sorry, you should really just have a bracket there. The total of those 3 scores divided by 3, the total of the 3 scores. And this goes on forever, right? You can say, what's the average if I wrote 4 tests? Well, if I wrote 4 tests, test A, B, and C, and D, test A, test B, test C, test D, add up your scores and divide by 4. That would be your average. Okay. So let's actually fill this in on our warm-up problem. Okay, and I'm actually going to stick with A and B because the letters will be less confusing when we start dealing with numbers. So I know what my average is. It's 75%. I know that on test A, right? On test A, I got 80. On test B, I don't know. That's my unknown. But I do know, right? And we're dividing by 2 because there are 2 tests. Here was test number 1, and there's test number 2. I've got 2 tests. I'm going to divide by 2. So essentially, I have this. 75 is equal to 80 plus, and just, it's usually normal to use small letters, so I'm just going to use a small b. And so what do we have here? We basically have a cross-multiplying thing, right? 75 is the same as 75 over 1. We're going to cross-multiply. We've got 2 times 75. And 1 times, remember from previous questions, if you've got just a positive 1, okay, times, even if this is a binomial, remember our polynomials, we've got 2 parts to it, nothing changes. So you could just rewrite this without brackets. So we double 75, and that's 150. 80 plus b. Well, this is a positive 80. What's the opposite of positive? It's negative. And look what we get for an answer. So that zeroes itself out. And our answer is 70b. So I call this a warm-up. I'm just trying to wrap your brain about how these mean questions work. Haha, little pun there. How these average questions work. And I wanted to use a warm-up question that dealt with super easy numbers, nothing in decimals. Okay, so I did prepare one here, though. Let's say the mean of 2 numbers is equal to, I wrote one down here. So let's say the mean between 2 numbers is 4.1. Again, I'm just making this up on the spot. I'm not doing your question for you, okay? Let's say the mean of 2 numbers, okay? So I'll just write in brackets here. This is 2 numbers. The mean of 2 numbers is 4.1, okay? So one of the numbers is, let me just erase that because I want actually I'm going to erase that too. Okay, Mr. Picky. One of the numbers is equal to 2.7. Okay, one of the numbers is 2.7. The second number, I don't know. Okay, but you do have 3 workable things. Yes, the fact that we're talking about 2 numbers is important. So our average here again is equal to the first number plus the second number. And because we have 2 numbers, we're going to divide it by 2. Well, I know the average, and I know the first number, and I don't know this number. So, of course, we're going to use our classic x. Now, a lot of people might say use an n here. Doesn't matter. Don't care. And this number 2 is the fact that it's the mean of 2 numbers. If it was the average or mean of 4 numbers, we would divide by 4. So what is the average? It's 4.1. What's one of the numbers? It doesn't matter. You can call it first or second, but I'm choosing to call it first. Is 2.7, okay? Plus the second number, I don't know. This is my unknown, so I'm going to put an x here. And then I'm going to divide that by 2. Okay, so what's going on here? Well, you could look at it from the cross-multiplying point of view. 4.1 is the same as 4.1 over 1. Okay, 1 times this binomial doesn't change anything. And over here we have 2 times 4.1. There's my wonkadoodle 4 again. 2 times 4.1. 1 times 2.7 plus x, this binomial doesn't change anything. It just is a simple little rewrite. Okay, the double of 4.1 is 8.2. And that's equal to 2.7 plus x. This is positive. The opposite of positive is negative. It's no different from saying the opposite of addition is subtraction. So that's gonna be, oh, well, I forgot to show here. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. That 0 pairs itself out. You get x, and, well, let's borrow 7, 12, 5, 5.5. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm now gonna just erase my simple warm-up, okay? Because what I want to do is I actually want to check this, okay? I think sometimes a few students maybe struggle with this notion of average. And so let's just go ahead and check this. All right. So let's check. Okay. All right. So what's our average between, well, we know one of the numbers, right, is 2.7. And now we're assuming we are correct. The second number is supposed to be 5.5. Okay. We're supposed to add those two numbers up and divide by 2. Okay. So you notice how I'm using my synonyms here. So now I've swapped out the word average, right, for mean. By the way, you notice I used an abbreviation there. Just going to fix that equal sign. Okay, so 2.7 plus 5.5. 2.7, let's see if I can get that better, plus 5.5. Okay. So what do we got here? 7 and 5 is 12. Carry the 1. 1, 2, 3, plus 5, 8. Okay. Well, I think I'm getting pretty happy here because we had 8.2 at some point over here. So we have 8.2. Now we got to divide that by 2. Okay. So the mean, I added up my two numbers. We got 8.2 divided by 2, and the answer is 4.1. The mean. Okay. And that checks out. So we're pretty happy. This is a yay moment with a happy face. Okay, so that was a little demo of how mean or average types of problems work. Hopefully that helped a little bit. And then I guess I'm about to do one that's similar to question 14. Okay, we'll see you there.